You're now listening to the Diversity Roundtable. I'm Pamela Klaba, entrepreneur, inclusion enthusiast, and the founder of Nonkosi Creatives with over 2 decades as a corporate HR professional. My goal is to give you insights into conversations with entrepreneurs and corporate professionals who have insightful stories of triumph and leadership. I uncover my personal journey from cultivating diversity and promoting inclusive communities. We'll also find out why building a prosperous society is vital for leadership roles. Subscribe and get ready to rise, lead, and help define the spirit of South African excellence. Good day, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming in. I am so excited today. We are on our second episode for 2024. This is episode 9, and we are joined by a very amazing guest that I'll introduce shortly. But before I do that, let us cover our topic today. So in this week's episode, we unpack the topic inclusion in work integrated learning, implications for HR professionals. So, to help us delve into the importance of inclusion in work integrated learning and its implications, we are joined by none other than Dr. Flevy Lasrado. She is a leader, associate professor, and researcher with over 15 years of experience in higher education and extensive experience in university industry partnerships as well as business excellence. She is a fellow of Higher Education Academy in the UK and European Framework for Quality Management Assessor. So, Dr. Flevy, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming in. We are so excited to have you. So before we get into today's discussion, please let me hand over to you. Please enlighten our listeners how we met. I didn't want to break the bubble, but just introduce them, how we met, who you are, what your passions are, and why are you so passionate about today's topic. Welcome, and over to you.
First, thank you, Pamela. I appreciate the chance to share my thoughts on your platform for EDI. Certainly, I'm delighted to provide some of my insights and background. Well, I guess, yeah, LinkedIn, as you said, is very powerful. That's where we got to know each other. And if I remember rightly, I think some of our contacts, mutual contacts, I guess, recommended that we should speak.
No, I'm particularly then intrigued, in terms of, why is inclusion so close to you? And then how do you relate with the aspect of inclusion in your work? Maybe just deep dive and give us more context in terms of why is this so close to your heart?
Okay. So personally, inclusion is a concept I deeply resonate with, recognizing its pivotal in organizational success. My work primarily involves around embedding inclusion in my area of expertise, that is, preparing students for the workforce through work integrated learning. Now, just to say what work integrated learning is, it's an educational approach that integrates academic learning with practical experience. The goal, of course, is to make students or so the goal of work integrated learning is actually is to provide students with real world exposure, allowing them to apply practical knowledge gained in their classroom to actual work settings. Within my organization, we deeply support the work integrated learning into all our subjects.
Well, thank you for this. You actually then wrote an article at Dr. Flevy. Can you tell us more about your article and what inspired it, and who were you hoping then to, who is your audience basically then for your article, and where can people find this article? So I'll hand over to you to just talk more about it.
Oh, Thank you for asking this. Yes, this is one of the recent research that I published in a high-ranked journal called Studies in Higher Education. This is for, of course, like industry professionals, academics, and everyone else around policymakers to read about it. So what I try to do this in this, I aim to define inclusive work integrated learning. That is to understand how inclusion in will is being approached and implemented. Drawing from a very comprehensive literature review, I actually articulated inclusive will as appreciating diverse students' needs or making difference invisible and championing social justice within the higher education. This actually means my overarching goal was to provide equitable access and participation in valuable learning opportunities. So for all students, irrespective of their backgrounds.
So maybe just to deep dive into what you just said, and particularly because you just mentioned the aspects around social justice. So in your context, how does this look like?
Um, yeah, and when I say the social context, what I mean to say is that irrespective of the social backgrounds of the students coming from the international arena, that they have equal opportunities available to them, just as like other students who are studying at the university. So the organizations are open to those students, particularly to be recruited, and they are able to gain access to these opportunities.
So I think this really sounds very interesting, because I think if you look at the world of work, there's just so much opportunity. But then how do we then encourage organizations and businesses to actually embrace the concept of workplace integrated learning, specifically for diverse students, diverse who come from diverse communities?
Right, that's precisely was my aim, and therefore my research underscores the importance of inclusive will, particularly in addressing diverse students' needs. So, one of the things, what is the implication for the industries is that what literature, for example, has highlighted, strong industry engagement is emerging as a key component, and organizations, especially HR professionals, definitely play a pivotal role in fostering these meaningful partnerships. In fact, inclusive practices need to be integrated into the selection process of candidates for will experience, ensuring that diverse pool of students benefit from these opportunities. And HR managers are really the gatekeepers of that, and there's important that they are involved at this particular stage to make sure this happens within their organization.
So how would then organizations really go about this? Maybe can you then just give us more context in terms of what are the different strategies, that employers and organizations they need to adapt, for to implement a fully inclusive workplace integrated learning? I'm sure obviously in your research you have many examples. So can you just then talk to us about that?
Yeah. For example, inclusion within the context of social justice itself is not a concept, but it's a strategic imperative. So, what I mean to say is that organizations should consider integrating justice principles into their inclusion efforts. Now, this means that it involves collaboration or collaborative partnerships with universities, industry, and community stakeholders so that they create a culturally relevant will experience and align that with the needs of the diverse students, aspirations, etc. One of the thing like strategy is to like what I say is the effective UIC, or we call it as university industry collaborations, and making their professionals who are to mentor these students, guide them, prepare them for those trainings on these EDI aspects.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Flevy. So I'm also then just particularly interested. Yes, we want to encourage organizations to embrace the concept of inclusive workplace integrated learning. But then I'm sure it doesn't come with, it does come, sorry, with some challenges. So what challenges have you seen in this space, and how can then organizations overcome these challenges?
Right. I've seen that there are several structural barriers actually within an organization. It could be like around their workload balance for staff, because this is an additional responsibility, especially engaging students in the internship and then mentoring them, making sure that equity and diversity is all observed. So often, some of the challenges are the lack of clarity for the field supervisors, like what are they expected to do. And also sometimes organizations or HR managers, it perhaps is very difficult for them to set priorities for their partners, especially for the academics, because they don't really know um, what to expect from a university. And university, on the other hand, would not know how much the mentoring or the support that the field supervisor who is assigned for this particular work can put forward. So these are some of those critical challenges, and therefore it needs to be, the approach needs to be institutionalized in a way that roles, responsibilities, expectations, communication aspects of it is all discussed and agreed upon. So this is something that universities and the organizations should look into, because these are those barrier areas, the crucial things which can actually hinder their, even though there is an intention, motivation to go for it, that they should be considering ironing out those differences and working together to bring this into the organization.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Flevy. I just want to build on, on what you just described in terms of, how can organizations overcome the challenges. But then I just want to take it more on a global context, right? So, because obviously you are based in Dubai, but obviously, your research is not limited in an area where you are based, I assume. So, just looking at the research that you have done, globally in some parts of the world, like I'm in Africa, right? I'm in South Africa. And how does this relate to me as an organization, maybe in South Africa or in Europe or different parts of the world? Based on your research, what have you seen in terms of different geographies?
Oh, I'm glad that you asked me that, especially in the context of South Africa. There's been some work being done, and then they encourage the work integrated learning. I've seen some of these strategies, challenges being discussed there. Now, my interest particularly was like, because in the international arena, there's quite a bit of research strategies being formulated, and in fact, my some of the research gaps that I saw, I needed something for my region, as to see like how do we incorporate these inclusive practices in the work integrated learning. Um, as I just said, because industry play a pivotal role in making sure that these programs work well, and there is a limited research in this particular context. One of the gaps that I actually identified is that the industry partners, particularly the senior managers, human resource managers, and field supervisors, there is no much information, or there's no much research being conducted as to see like how these potential key stakeholders can be involved in carrying out this important task within the organization. So the exploration involving delving into their perspective on inclusion, and how are they examining their viewpoints to shape their active contribution for establishing sustainable and inclusive will initiatives. That's where there is a research gap. And of course, in an international context, when I looked at quite a few studies, research has begun there, and they have been able to report these are some of the inclusion practices. This is what we could do. But of course, there is a unique voice which is also saying we got to do more. And then, of course, like when when I dwelled into this particular research, then my focus was like, okay, to see what we can learn from these international experiences. And it was glad that I was able to see from your country, particularly that ISO papers. And it's also very nice to see that how they have said your education system embeds that into, I guess, like in a global context, we are going together, taking this agenda forward.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Flevy, because I'm sure the HR world is so big and broad, right? So what are what would be your typical suggestions then for HR professionals who want to look into and promote the aspects of workplace integrated learning, and also maybe in just diversity, equity, and inclusion as a whole? So what suggestions or advice would you give to HR professionals in terms of how they need to show up in this space?
Great. Camilla, what I would say is that, fostering inclusive work environments, actually, HR, what it means to HR manager is that they should extend their focus to internship programs. Because these programs, when they're inclusive and equitable, they definitely yield mutual benefit for organizations, students, as well as for the universities. Now, using my three category framework that I said, how I categorize inclusion into they should be able to see, like, because there are three different aspects of how do we conceptualize it, how do we understand, or how do we approach it. So I guess HR managers should look into it, like how do they then design their roles and make it more and more like equitable, accessible, and the diversity is managed within this workplace. Because the whole confusion or like no non-clarity, I would say, was around, like, of course, we have said inclusion broadly. We have spoken about inclusion in education, inclusion in workplace. Now, what I try to do is that narrowing it down to the work integrated learning. And this is where, like, I kind of suggest that this frameworks gives us, like, a starting point to see what does it mean inclusion in the work integrated learning, so that we have a kind of a pathway to build around and say what we should do.
No, thank you so much. I mean, it's really wonderful work that you do, Dr. Flevy. I really, really admire the space that you are in. And I think the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion is taking all of us, into different spaces where we actually then share and communicate with like-minded people, like yourselves. But I mean, I think I'm particularly interested also just to know, what are then your next steps, and then where and how do you intend to take this research forward? You've written an article, it's probably out there. So what is the next step for you? Are there any collaborations? And also in terms of your work environment, what does this mean?
Right. So my next steps is so basically addressing these identified gaps in my research. So I'm particularly excited about exploring the motivations and the challenges faced by different industry professionals, that is, especially the leadership, the HR professional, and field supervisor. So how can they collaborate for this university industry partnerships which facilitate these inclusive internships? So I plan to kind of approach this question through the lenses of organizational relationship theory and the reasoned action approach, which are basically robust theoretical models that I plan to underpin this inquiry onto. But it would also be then, of course, help practitioners and organizers to successfully build these inclusive will programs. I just mentioned in the beginning that in my workplace, I have initiated this incubation center, providing students, you know, uh, two or three different type of opportunities, because traditionally we know workplace experience is to be obtained by placing a student in an industry directly into a workplace. But in the modern context, where there are several challenges in doing so, and then of course there are several challenges from the student perspective also, because of their diverse needs. So this incubation center looks into a variety of models, like global hackathons, taking up those innovation challenges, or the industry professionals coming together or putting together a consortium of the projects, consulting projects where students can pick while still on incubation center and providing that support to the industry people, thereby both of them have a win-win situation. So there are multiple ways like where we can provide these students internships. So that's what I've actually currently started doing. And then of course my research therefore will be like, trying to see what actually motivates these HR professionals to get into this new mechanism of providing workplace experience to students.
Noble work, Dr. Flevy. I think I'd really like to dwell on this incubation center because you've mentioned it, a couple of times, but I'm also then just particularly interested in terms of how did you go about starting this incubation center? What support did you get? How big is it? What are the number of students that are participating in this? Are there any partnerships in terms of corporate organizations that you partner with? And what does this mean in the context of the university that you represent, University of Wollongong? I'm asking this deliberate question, Dr. Flevy, so that we can see that people from different parts of the world who are doing similar work, or people that may be inspired by what you do, how can they go about, implementing something similar that you do in your incubation program? Can you just give us more context in terms of how this works and how it started?
Excellent. I mean, particularly the organization support. I have like full support from the my organization. So university took this up as like one of the initiatives that we needed to do. This was also because it is important in this part of the region that we provide workplace experience for students. So this was a institutional aim too. So therefore, like I got a lot of support to get started with this particular initiative. We just started this and we have a designated curriculum. So the way we started is that we have a subject which is called as professional business experience. So we enroll students onto this particular subject. I think for last couple of years we've got many students using this particular subject and getting ready for workplace. But then when the incubation center that we just started last year, we got about like more than 45 organizations placing our students into their workplaces. And within the incubation center, one of the interesting project that I would like to discuss that we just completed with SAP India, for about 45 students participated. It was like generative AI related problem, a challenge given by the organization, and our students participated. They mentored them throughout 8 to 9 weeks, and they produced solutions. Besides that, of course, like we have within the incubation center, the students are being on campus. Particularly as I speak to you, I've got about 5 students working with four or five industry partners, working together again on the same agenda of like how can we create these opportunities. So it gives them experience of like how to organize, or how to, because these students are, I think, particularly from human resource management discipline. So they are talking to these HR professionals and say, how can we bring together industry? So it also works as a workplace experience for them within the incubation center. And yeah, we are open to work with many different collaborators internationally. Whenever they have these consulting problems, they can remotely mentor the students within the incubation center. They do the work required, and of course, incubation center coordinators, all of the uh, people out here, we mentor them and make sure that work is being done, students get what they want, industry get what they want. And as university professionals, we are happy that our students are getting, a kind of experience that we want them to, so that work ready, graduate ready students.
No, thank you so much. It is really, really interesting work that you do, and that will go a long way in terms of just making sure that raising awareness in terms of your research, but also with this incubation program, I think it's very noble that then students then in turn get a work-related experience. I'm sure it makes it easier as well, Dr. Flevy, when they actually then go into full-time employment. Wouldn't you say so? More interested now, what sort of feedback do you get? So you've got this incubation center, they get the experience, and some of them get placed, right, in these organizations. So what sort of feedback do you get from either the students themselves or the organizations that they get placed into?
Very recently, I kind of held open day for an incubation center where I guess I had about 20 industry professionals, especially the HR senior executive came over to discuss um, the interest. My idea was that once again wanted to present it to many different people and get their feedback. And very interestingly, I had very positive feedback. What they liked is this kind of a model, and they do recognize this is important, it needs to work. And I'm in fact organizing one more exactly 2 weeks from now. Once again, like a pool of HR professionals are coming together to understand what exactly is this incubation center and how students can be placed with them, how they can mentor and so on. So there has been a positive feedback from industry so far. And then of course, like students do get advantage because they get a credit for their subject, they get workplace experience, they are networking with those right professionals because they're one step ahead when compared to other who have no access to the world of work. So I have basically started gathering this type of responses. In fact, perhaps when I have my next piece of paper, this research findings, especially the feedback numbers and the impact would be, I try to hopefully get it out in my next article. Yeah.
Yes. No, thank you so much. I think let me ask another leading question. I'm really trying to now pick your brain. And it's like, why is Pamela asking me all of these things? No, but I really want to pick your brain, Dr. Flevy, because I think you are just doing amazing work. And now have you ever thought about also just that other than partnering with the organizations where these students get experience from. But then have you ever thought about maybe in the long run partnering with, like HR professional bodies or professional societies across the world? I mean, there are many of them. So is this something that you have ever thought of or you've found, come across in your research?
Um, Safe for me, like when I say work placement, that's directly with the organizations. Of course, the professional bodies and so on. I mean, that's fine if they wanted to provide some experience, and if our students wanted to get a specific experience with these professional bodies. If it's I do have one or two HR professionals, like always wanting to see how is it is to work with like. I guess the one of the Australian Institute of Human Resources organizations was a particular interest out there. And very recently, I was also approached by a research organization. They were wanting to do some sort of a research, like how they can, especially the mentoring can be accredited by the any human resources bodies. Therefore, they wanted two or three students from us to work with them in order to prepare their content and get their standardizations required for the accreditation purposes from one or two HR bodies. So our students kind of like right now, I guess one student is taking an interview for that particular position, and the placement is open on our website. If that kind of interest come from these institutions, especially the accreditation bodies of HR, I mean, we're really happy to do that. I mean, maybe going forward, I've not really thought of like, um, you know, maybe using that within our incubation center for accreditation purposes, because we are, of course, governed by many different bodies as a quality institution. We do look for professional accreditations getting recognized by different quality organizations and so on. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Flevy. I think we have been talking for just over 30 minutes or so. And, so what does the future look like for you? I mean, it's a brand new year. This is just the end of January, and we still have about 11 months of the year. So can you talk to us about that? What does the future look like for you for this year? And what is on your plate, and what words of encouragement can you offer to HR professionals specifically on this topic of workplace integrated learning and promoting inclusion in this space?
Right. So I've got like one or two areas this year actually. I'm actually anticipating developing this model for university industry collaborations for inclusive internships. That's one priority. And second thing is I'm coming up with a mentorship platform which is inclusive, so that probably like students from your context or from your region, where they can participate and take a mentorship, understand how it is to find global placement, how to become a global citizen, global skills, and so on. I recently got an institutional research grant for this. So I'm on this research to develop this mentorship platform, where, the professionals, the networks, and the mentees connect for their career progression and so on. Also, like I'm looking to expand this particular research by looking at some industries supporting this research. Recently, I've got a Dubai organization coming on board to extend this research. So I'm open to collaborate with many other institutions, organizations wanting to be part of it, and happy to have it as a pro bono service for everyone else to utilize so that they can progress in their career and get that timely assistance for their career progression.
Thank you, Dr. Flevy. Be careful what you sign up for because we will take you up on it. The year is still young. No, thank you so much. We are so humbled by your presence. We are absolutely blessed to have you today and actually share your amazing work that you do in the world of research and promoting inclusion in the space of workplace integrated learning. And I'm sure this is not the first or the last time that we will be engaging, because I think there's just so much opportunity in terms of collaborating in this space, in the human resources industry as well. There's just so much more that could be done on a global scale. So no, thank you so much. So, but before we close off, and where do you, want to take this? Because I think we, to make sure that this discussion continues. What is your vision then for collaborations? And I know you've touched on it, but I think people like you, professionals like you, don't do things just for the sake of doing things, right? So the world has become so small, so how do you see this going forward? Obviously, without making any promises or anything like that, but it's always good to talk to people from all walks of life, from people from different parts of the world. It would be nice for you to visit South Africa one day. I'm not even sure if you've ever been in South Africa, so talk to us about that before we close off. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but hey, why not?
That's
Yeah, got that smile. I was trying to bring out that smile out of you.
That's a very big, like, I have to think what next that I actually uh, give in to say, okay, what I would do is like, of course, because these conversations are really important. Thank you for facilitating really this meaningful talk, I would say. Especially your thoughtful inquiries also made me make this conversation more engaging for me, and also allowed me to articulate my research in a way that I find it valuable. Um, and I really appreciate this opportunity, Pamela. So I definitely would love to be in touch with you, in contact with you. And then, of course, the amazing episodes that you are planning to do any point in time, if my research further gives kind of like, benefit to your audience, I'm always happy to do that. When I've got some impacts and I've got new findings which can be used by the practitioners, I'm happy to come over on board again and share them with you. And there will always be mutual benefits when we do a collaborative work. And if there is a purpose, of course, the impact is that I want to see this is being impacted in my students' life. I want to see this being impacted in what the HR professionals do, because that's my passion and core area is. I just want to see it advancing. That's about it.
Let me let you go, Dr. Flevy. Let me let you go. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. It's been an absolute pleasure having this discussion with you today. And I know we will engage in the near future. Thank you so much. And you must really have a good day. To our listeners, you have been listening to episode 9 of the Diversity Roundtable with the topic Inclusion in Work Integrated Learning, Implications for HR Professional, with one of the brilliant minds in the world, which is Dr. Flevy Lasrado from the University of Wollongong in Dubai. Thank you so much. We will talk again in a few weeks. Thank you for tuning in and stay blessed.
Thank you.